absolutely broken crafting stats. So I've got 44% multicraft, 38% resourcefulness, 75% crafting speed, and 21% ingenuity. So how have I done this? Because this looks like absolutely crazy. Now this looks like a hack or some sort of cheat or something like that, but it's all a quirk of the crafting system that we have in the War within that has allowed me to get these absolutely crazy crafting stats. So how have I done this then? So in Dragonflight, profession gear had plus Dragonflight profession skill for whatever profession it was, and it also had secondary stats on that gear. Now when War Within released, obviously we get a new batch of profession gear, and on that profession gear you get, just like with the Dragonflight equivalents, you get plus profession skill for the relevant profession, and you also get the secondary stats. Now, in order to make it so that the blue rare profession gear from Dragonflight wasn't better than any War Within profession gear, then obviously the stats had to increase on the new stuff. Now, what this would mean is if they hadn't increased the amount of stats you got in the War Within from your profession gear, then you'd have a situation by which the rare stuff from the current expansion, as in from Dragonflight, going into War Within would be better than the uncommon profession gear, at least as far as crafting secondary stats are concerned. Obviously, you don't get the plus skill, but in a lot of cases, that doesn't matter anyway. So obviously, Blizzard increased the amount of secondary stats that you get by quite a lot. Now, to combat this, Blizzard increased the amount of secondary stats you needed to get, say, a percentage point of Multicraft. So it feels like that if you are BIS and you have all your rare profession gear, then your percentages in the War Within will be about the same as they were in Dragonflight if you had full BIS gear from Dragonflight as well, which is fair enough. But what Blizzard didn't do is they didn't scale the Dragonflight crafts up with the new War Within profession gear. And this makes sense because otherwise, if you was a Dragonflight crafter with your Dragonflight crafting gear and stuff like that, if they had rescaled everything, then as soon as that new expansion hit, then suddenly all your percentages would be terrible and you would need War Within profession gear to be able to craft it. So they didn't scale it up. Now what this means is it means you can take your War Within profession gear back to Dragonflight and you can craft with some absolutely insane stats. So you can see here that with this insane amount of multicraft and resourcefulness that I'm just getting procs like constantly while crafting. I mean, double procs a lot of the time, just all the way through resourcefulness and multicraft. Now you may think this doesn't matter because it's Dragonflight crafting, so nobody wants any of this stuff anyway, did they? Because it's from the last expansion. But the thing is, people have found quite a few bits that you can craft and make these ridiculous crafting stats quite useful in making gold in the current expansion. So the only one I'm going to talk about is the one I have used because I don't want to wreck other people's markets. But I've been using this to craft all the engineering stuff from Dragonflight and making sort of a decent amount of gold from it as well. So I've actually made a lot more gold from Dragonflight engineering crafting than War Within engineering crafting. So what I'm crafting then, I'm mainly crafting the Ceravite bolts, but I am crafting quite a lot of grease gears as well. And the profit margins on these are reasonable, but this is not just something you can set up at a whim, because not only do you need to have the all rare profession gear from the War Within, but you also already have to have the profession set up in Dragonflight. And this is a case with a lot of the stuff that you can use and take advantage of these profession stats with. You need to already have the Dragonflight profession set up. And to be fair, it's probably not worth going back and doing all this now because you can probably just make more gold doing stuff in War Within rather than messing about trying to do fancy stuff with old profession stats. And you never know if any of this is going to change anyway. So I wouldn't recommend going back and trying to sort of grind out hundreds of knowledge points for last expansion. But if you already have professions set up, then you could have something in there that could make you quite a bit of gold that you've probably not thought about, that you'd be able to craft significantly cheaper than you was able to just a few months ago. So like I said, I'm crafting these bolts and these greased gears. People are using them to sort of level up their engineering to get rusted scrap, and they're also using them quite a lot for sort of pilfering to get the mount parts and stuff like that. And they, like I said, they're selling quite well. Now, what you have to think about when you're thinking about the potential targets as to the sort of stuff you could craft from this. So what sort of things does it not matter about? Obviously, anything like gear or anything like that, that's no one's going to want that sort of stuff. But is there stuff that you were crafting in professions from Dragonflight that you can potentially, that's sort of evergreen, stuff that people always want? See, now, I know you can't craft transmog, but that's the sort of thing that's evergreen, people always want. Think about that with your professions from Dragonflight, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what people are doing, like I said, besides me, but this has made me quite a lot of gold. Say it's made millions of gold would be accurate. Now, one of the best things I've actually found about this is that there doesn't seem to be there is competition in the market, don't get me wrong, and the profit margins are not great. But unlike the War Within markets, it doesn't feel like you're getting piled on by the amount of competition that's coming into it. And that's just because you cannot set this up on a whim, because you need all the Dragonflight engineering knowledge, as well as the stuff from the War Within. And it's going to be like that with a lot of the other stuff that you can craft from Dragonflight that can take advantage of all these profession stats. So if you have professions set up from Dragonflight, then have a look, because like I said, people are making gold from this, and it is worth looking at, because you might be able to craft these things significantly cheaper than you could before. And as you can see here, just continuously procking Multicraft resourcefulness all the time to keep those crafting costs really low. And hopefully you might be able to find some sort of niche market with a lot less competition than a lot of other stuff in the War Within, basically because it's not that easy to set up because of the fact that you have to have those professions from Dragonflight. Overall then, this is just a really quirky, unusual way to be making gold at the start of a new expansion, like crafting stuff from a previous expansion. So have a look at it, because there are markets here, and like I said, the competition is much lower than in the War Within stuff. The profit margins aren't particularly better, but the competition is much lower, which means hopefully like the price, that profit margin that's currently there will hold for longer than perhaps the War Within ones will. So anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.